A number of years ago, I was talking with a prospective client who would subsequently become a client. And as I was discussing our investment program and historical returns versus benchmarks, he stopped me. He said, "Brad, that's great. But the real reason we're talking is that I know anything you do for me is going to be better than anything I could do on my own." Well, many investors obsess over benchmark comparisons. This individual had made enough mistakes on his own to recognize that he'd never come close to getting the benchmark return without some help. He needed a guide, someone to help him avoid some of the common investor pitfalls. That brings us to the Russell Study's second advisor value add, behavioral coaching. The concept of behavioral finance is still somewhat new, but advisors have increasingly recognized the importance it can play in both managing relationships and portfolio performance. In fact, the Russell Study estimated the behavioral coaching impact or advisor value add at an eye-popping 2.54%. We'll come back to the calculation of that figure in a bit, but according to the study, this represents the most significant area of opportunity for value creation by advisors. While investors may be shocked by that figure, I suspect most advisors won't be. Investors tend to be ruled by their emotions. Behavioral finance, pioneered by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky in the late 70s, argued that those emotions result in investors not always behaving rationally or in their own best interests. In other words, on their own, many investors will end up repeatedly buying high and selling low. Behavioral coaching, therefore, is what advisors do to help their clients ignore or set aside their emotions that helps them stick to their long-term investment plan and portfolio and avoid making big mistakes. I'm sure some will still question that 2.54% value add estimate. So let's look a little closer at some related figures. The biggest behavioral mistake investors make is trying to time the market, either staying uninvested for long periods waiting for the perfect opportunity that never comes, or selling out of the market after it's already dropped for fear it'll go down even more. As this graphic shows, over a 10-year time period ending in 2022, an investor who didn't attempt to time the market at all would have turned 100,000 into 326,540. As the bars to the right of that first bar show, just missing a small portion of the best market days can dramatically reduce or even eliminate all the gains. Yes, the 2.54% figure is overly precise, but clearly the impact of behavioral coaching and not making mistakes can be enormous. Let's look at another study. This one is a little dated, but I've seen this study done several times and the results are always similar. This was a comparison of the dollar-weighted investor returns for various mutual funds with the buy and hold returns for those same funds. Said another way, the dollar-weighted investor returns incorporated the timing of investor buy and sell decisions, whereas the buy and hold returns were simply the fund returns from the start of the study to the end of the study. As shown, the dollar-weighted investor returns, the mint green bars, consistently trailed the fund returns or blue bars. The reason for that is that investors tended to repeatedly buy funds after they had done well or sold them after they had already done poorly. This is what is referred to as hot dot chasing, something that rarely works, yet we see investors fall into the trap over and over and over again. The difference between the bars varied from as little as 1.3% to more than 3.1%. Again, a huge impact. Another way to think of those figures is that investors, through their own attempts to time funds or the market, had cost themselves somewhere between 1.3 and 3.1% per year in performance. Which brings us back to the Russell Study and that 2.54% figure. It's probably better to think of that figure as the value of avoiding big mistakes, as they weren't predicting or claiming that an advisor would outperform the market by that much. Rather, their estimate was simply the amount that they believed investors were costing themselves due to poor investment decisions or timing. Similar to the prior graph we looked at, this shows the average investor underperformed the S&P 500 over a 15-year time period by that 2.54% number. Simply matching the market return for most investors would be a huge win. Not every investor is the same, of course, and we agree that there should be some healthy skepticism to all these figures. But any advisor who has been through at least one market cycle will tell you they've seen investors make mistakes that performance-wise, they may never recover from. The value an advisor can add by simply helping people avoid mistakes is material and shouldn't be underestimated. I hope you found this segment interesting and helpful. Please check out the other videos in our series on the value of an advisor. As always, thank you for watching. If you have questions or would like to talk about your personal wealth management needs, please contact us at the number or email at the close of this video.